sharp, that's when the signal shines in. Got the mic set up and the camera spin. Grab a coffee, pull up your chair, join the drive. 'Cause the only place to be on a Monday night at 9 is right here, alive. We're drilling down deep on the legend of fur, the biggest mystery ever did stir. It's Sasquatch Watch Radio. Tune into the same with Gary Kendrick hosting with King. He's heard the howls, he's caught the form's trace, a true seeker leading the chase. Something stirs out in the shadowy wood. Let's uncover it together, just like we should. The team is geared up, the map is laid clear. We bring expert voices where the facts appear. We feature top names on this digital plane, from Meldrum's big theories to Strange Rich Strain. With Lyle Blackburn and Scott Violet online, we chase the elusive one sighting at a time. It's Sasquatch Watch Radio. Tune into the screen with Gary Kendrick, host of the scene. He's heard the howls, he's seen the dark form, a true eyewitness leading the storm. Something is lurking out in the dark wood. Let's find it together, just like we should. We give you the legends, the truth laid raw, and a unique track for the tale of the law. So subscribe to the channel, heed the lead. We're planting knowledge, pulling up the weed. Yeah, Monday night, 9 Eastern, YouTube Live. Sasquatch Watch Radio, where the quest thrives.
Hey everybody, it's Monday night, January the 12th, 2026. You're watching Sasquatch Watch Radio. I'm your host, Gary Kendrick. Tonight we have on Amanda Stowers, the Bigfoot Lady, and she is from Georgia. We'll bring Amanda on right now.
Hey Gary,
Hello,
how's
Amanda.
it going?
Great, how are you?
I'm doing well, sir.
Excellent, excellent. You guys staying warm down there?
Trying to. You can see I'm dressed for it today anyhow. It's
What is it, about 40 degrees?
Yeah, it's about 35, 40 degrees, but it's a cold one because the humidity makes it quite chilly.
We're supposed to get to 5 degrees next week.
Sounds
So
about
this
right
is
for your
not
neck
being-
of the woods.
Yeah, this is not being pleasant. I just want to go ahead and we're going to jump right into it. First thing I want to bring up is in 2001, you had 2 encounters. Tell us about your encounters in 2001 when you were younger.
Yes. So in 2001, I had an experience with Sasquatch, and I've actually had 2 experiences, as you mentioned. And both of them were kind of around the same time period. I'd say probably within a couple of months of each other. I grew up here in North Georgia, so we didn't have much back then. We lived off of wood heat, so I was helping my dad haul firewood, and my brother was with me. I have 3 brothers actually, so I'm the eldest. So when I say my older brother is the oldest of the 3, my older brother and our cousin was there with us. So all 3 of us teenagers had gotten a break, and we went out into the woods. That's what you did. My cousin that I mentioned, she had actually just recently, her uncle or her what? Excuse me. Let me start over. Her mother was marrying my uncle, and so she was new to the family. And on the family property where we were at, there was this really, really large tree that we all referred to as the carving tree. And for that exact reason, everybody had carved their name on it over the years. So we're like, hey, she's part of the family now. Let's go let her put her name on the carving tree. So that was where we at. We went across the hayfield into the tree line to where this big carving tree was at. And to kind of paint the picture a little bit, it was this massive, massive oak tree, but it had a really big rock outcrop that kind of grew up next to it. And so up underneath the rock, it kind of had like a big nesting type area where it was really, really packed down hard clay where, nothing grew and obviously things used it to bed down in. And where I was standing when everything transpired, I was up on top of that rock. So I was like, midway up the tree, which is where I had put my name before. And so I was up there, messing with that some more. My brother and my cousin, they were down on the ground below. And we ain't been there too long. And suddenly my brother goes, Amanda, we got to go. I'm like, no, we'll go in a minute. We just got here. And he's like, no, we got to go like right now. And he basically takes off running. Him and my cousin take off running. I'm like, oh, snap. If they're running, I'm running too. Worried, is it a bear? Is it a mountain lion? What's coming at us, which all in hindsight, that was a terrible thing to do if it was a bear or a cougar. So I had to jump down off of the rock, run around it and head to catch them. So they were a little bit ahead of me. So when I got to the tree line, something let out a roar, a scream, a yell. I'm not sure what to call it, but I just know it was the loudest roar, howl that I'd ever heard at that time. And it was enough for me to reach up to my ears and cover my ears. As I'm running, I kind of stumble and I fall. And I have this burnt image in my head of looking up as I'm doing that. And my brother and my cousin are running through the hay and all the birds are flying up out of the hay as they're running. And I catch up to them and I'm like, what is happening? What is going on? What was that? My brother's like, I think it was freaking Bigfoot. Like, you gotta be kidding, right? No, there's no way. So we run across the field, end up catching up to my dad and my uncle, and they saw us kids was all flustered. And he's like, so what happened? What's wrong with you guys? And my brother tells him what it was that he saw, and they just kind of look at each other and they kind of giggled and laughed, said, "Oh, you kids done run into the booger, didn't you?" Just like, it was no big deal. Like, we didn't just have like this extremely traumatic experience just happen to us. So we had heard a story our entire life from that piece of property of there being a booger on that property. And at least for my family and such, booger wasn't necessarily just Bigfoot. It was for any kind of monster or anything that kind of went bump in the night. So we always had kind of assumed that maybe it was a ghost was what was on that property that had scared uh, a distant family member away. My grandma was the one who actually always was telling us about it. So when we told her about our experience, she did basically the same thing. "Oh, you kids done run into the booger. That's what, scared your Uncle Kerm away, and he would never go back up there." So what my brother had actually seen, I didn't actually see it. I just heard it at that time. He saw up behind me on the hill up behind me, maybe 50 to 100 yards away, a very, very large humanoid figure that had one arm up on a tree like this. It was kind of leaning out, using it as kind of a brace so he could see the full silhouette of it. It had a really, really long arm that hung down, low. And he said it had coppery, like orangutangish colored hair all over it. And there wasn't any hair on the face, but it, started, midway back. He said he described it as a monkey face. And he said it was way taller than our dad. And my dad, he's a big mountain man. So, he was like 6'2", 6'3", big mountain man. And said it was way bigger than him. And interesting thing is that if I flash forward many, many years later, and just like now, I'm sharing this experience over and over and over again on different shows, not to mention in my daily life working at Expedition Bigfoot, the Sasquatch Museum. I got to talking to my brother around Christmas about 2 years ago, and I said, "Hey, just let's talk about what happened to us. I just want to make sure that I have my ducks in a row that I'm describing this thing and what happened to us, exactly because I maybe remember something that you might remember a little bit different." And so, we're talking it out, hashing it out, the details, okay, yeah, that happened, then you saw it, I didn't, and I was running around, and I was telling him, I was like, "Yeah, that's the one thing I remember the most about it is, I didn't see it, I just heard it." He's like, "What do you mean heard it?" And I was like, The roar, it roared at us." And he's like, "Amanda, I don't remember hearing nothing. I just saw the thing, it was looking at us with big glowing red eyes, and I took off running. I don't remember hearing nothing." I was like, "How could you not hear that?" It was the loudest thing I'd ever heard in my life. Um, I go to, lots of concerts. I've been around, the cars with all those, big subwoofers and stuff like that. And you know how, like, when you're standing right in front of a big speaker and you just have that, like, all-encompassing sound that you can feel, like, vibrating through you? That was the only way I could describe, like, how loud this was. And for him to not hear it, I just find that to be just I guess you'd call it bizarre or freaky. I'm not sure. Insert descriptive word there. But now, knowing what I do now about Sasquatch and some of the abilities that they have, I think I may have gotten zapped and not realized it. I didn't get sick or anything like that, but just like I was just hit with this all encompassing sound, this just roar, just went from low to high, just so that was my first experience.
Amanda, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're
Let me ask you a couple questions about that. Like you mentioned this, and I've had something similar happen to me once.
mhm.
But with the noise, like you said, standing in front of a speaker, you can feel your in. Did you feel your insides moving? Did you like
Basically,
feel it
yeah.
shaking inside?
Basically, just like everything was shaking. Just that loud, just oh my gosh, it's so loud, shaking. But it came from behind me instead of from in front of me.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's rough. That's hard on a young
Yeah,
kid.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
hard on a
I
young
was
kid.
15 at the time, so I wasn't as young as my brother. He was 12, but yeah, still something interesting, that's for sure. And people ask me a lot, and I'll go into more detail with my other experience. How did it affect me and everything like that? It did and it didn't. I didn't really, obviously talk about it a lot, except for outside of family, because high school is crap for just about everybody. You're not being the crazy Bigfoot lady walking around in high school, well, which now I wear the title proudly. But I've had so many weird and paranormal and spiritual experiences happen to me in my lifetime that I just kind of filed it back with, just another experience. Um, so with my second experience that I now attribute to being Sasquatch, I call this thing the bearskin rug creature because that's what it looked like to me. This would be at my mom and dad's house, and it was at fall because all the leaves had freshly fallen down on the ground, and so everything was, bright browns and oranges, and the leaves was all crunchy. And me and all my brothers, the neighbor kids, the cousins, we were the house that everybody came and rode their bikes over to and hung out with because we had like, the fort, we had the yard to play in and everything. So that's what they were all doing. Everybody had jumped down out of the wood line to go get on their bikes and stuff. And I thought I heard like a deer or something, just something really loud in the leaves coming up real close, just that getting really, really, really close really fast. I'm like, oh crap, I'm about to be like ambushed or plowed over by a deer. So I turn real quick at that moment and I'm looking at this thing looking back at me. It was this creature that was laying down flat on its belly with its head up because it was resting on its chin, and its arms stretched out to its side, like exactly how you would describe a bearskin rug, because it had its mouth open for whatever reason. And it's almost like, how time slows down, because I know all this happened within like a split second. I'm looking at this thing and I was just, trying to process one, what am I seeing? Because I'm like, this isn't a bear. This isn't human. This isn't a monkey. What is this? It looked like all three of those things combined into one. And again, my brothers are hollering me, "Hey, Amanda!" I turn and look at them. I look back, and in just that quick of a second, that thing was gone. It was also bizarre too, which is making me question it, is because from the waist down, if you're looking at it, coming down the back and going down to the waist, from the waist down, I couldn't see anything. It was like it was completely blended in with the leaves, like it just disappeared into the leaves. The arms were outstretched to each side, and I couldn't see hands because where it was positioned, it was exactly in between two trees. So I couldn't see its hands, but I could see its arms, and very much arms, not like legs, but like what we have, arms and shoulders, very big shoulders, back, the back of the head and the hair, all of that was all one um color. Like there wasn't really much of a neck or anything, if there was one, and the head was kind of conical, but it had a slight muzzle to it. I don't remember teeth like big fangs. It had very flat teeth like what we do, and they were also very, very dark. Same thing, the inside of the mouth was also dark. The only way I can describe it is, if you're familiar with, like, chow dogs or anything like that, how
Mhm.
they're black on the inside, their tongues and gums and everything. That was what it was like, and I don't it's weird too, because I don't remember, like, a nose that much because the mouth was so exaggerated open. I don't know if it, like, covered the nose or if it just squished up so much that I couldn't see it from that angle, but the eyes is one of the things that caught me and makes me remember so much about it, is that they were so dark. They were if you could describe something being red and black at the same time, just dark. No whites on the eyes like what I have here pointing at, but just dark black eyes. I always remember the quote from the movie Jaws when they're talking about the shark, it's like a doll's eyes, just these black soulless eyes. I know it's silly. I'm that kind of a weirdo person. That's how I remember it. And they were sunk kind of back in, and it had an extremely prominent brow ridge. It was completely straight, very Neanderthal, like, where it kind of comes out. But it was interesting too because this section here was the only part that didn't really have hair. The rest of it was very hairy, very like Chewbacca hair, where the forehead, the eyebrow, all of this was hair, and it just blended on back, and it blended into the leaves. It was just this really, really bizarre creature, and I I really, really wish I could remember the, witness report that I was taking at the museum. Um, I was this was in 2019, and I feel like I'm jumping all over the place. When I
You're
started
okay.
working at Expedition Bigfoot, um, I remembered my first encounter all the time. But this one I didn't really remember that much. I've had so many other experiences in my life. I never really attributed this to being Sasquatch. I just thought this was
Yeah.
some other weird booger, some kind of weird entity that I saw and just kind of filed it in the back of my head. I wish that I could remember the witness report that I was taking, but I don't, unfortunately. But whatever it was that they were talking about or that they were describing all of a sudden made me remember this incident and this creature, because what they were describing was very similar, and it was almost like a repressed memory that came back. I was just like, I remembered just, all these details about it. I'm just like, "Oh my god, that was real. That wasn't like a dream that I ever had, this was a thing." And the physical descriptions of it and stuff are so similar to some other people's descriptions of Sasquatch. And then now you have these reports, and I've even taken some myself, um, of them doing the spider crawl type thing. So I don't know if it was doing
Mhm.
that and it snuck up on me or what, but that you also take reports of them cloaking and being able to be invisible or have the predator effect. So maybe that was what it was doing, where I was only able to see half of it from, the top up. Like I caught it, mid transition and it was just frozen there with its mouth open. Like,
Uh-huh.
whenever you're dropping to the ground or something, you go, oh, maybe that was what it was doing. I don't know. So, because as soon as I looked away from it and just that quick, that thing was gone. And we talk and hear reports all the time about these things vanishing. So whether it was a Sasquatch or not, I don't know. But it checks off all the boxes for rep- of what these things are capable of doing. So maybe
I
it
kind of
was,
want
maybe
to
it wasn't. I don't know.
I
But
kind of want
that's
to
what I'm
dissect this.
attributing it to us.
I kind of want to dissect that with you a little bit, but Thomas
Okay.
Steenberg, a researcher from up in Canada, Thomas,
Hey,
great guy.
Thomas.
Thomas says, I wonder if some male relative or friend was having some fun knowing Amanda had said she thought she encountered Sasquatch before.
No, not that I'm aware of. So
Uh,
the carving tree incident happened before the bearskin rug thing. So not that I would be aware. None of my cousins or anything would do that.
okay, I'm
They
going to
they would
ask.
they would know they would know that somebody would end up with a something between their eyes per se.
Yeah, I'm going to ask some questions.
No, please
Uh,
do.
the bearskin rug thing I found really fascinating.
Mhm.
Okay, for starters, what color was the like the hair that you saw? Was it the
It was
reddish
it was
copper?
kind of in the reddish brown area again. It was very, very similar to the leaves on the ground. Um, how they're that lightish brown color, kind of orangey tones, because it was bright daylight too. So it was really,
Hmm.
really fresh fall colored leaves.
And I know we all get a lot of reports of, they call it cloaking and sometimes the shimmer. I've heard it called the shimmer before or whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, one of my things, like on the cloaking, and I'm gonna ask you if you think this. Do you think that possibly it was like colored so really close to the foliage that was on the ground that it just blended in like a
I've
natural
actually
camouflage?
I've actually thought that myself. Yes, 100%. And that could have been a possibility, and it could have been just you know cloaked per se. I hate trying to think of a descriptive term. My vocabulary isn't working with me this evening. So yeah, I've honestly that's what I attributed it to at first, is that it just blended in so well with the foliage.
Yeah, a lot of times I think that Sasquatch has it's not one color, even though we may
Mhm.
perceive like one color. Like the one that I saw appeared to me to be kind of salmon red, really
Mhm.
close to what you were describing. And then
Yes, sir.
some people say it's black, but we get a lot of hair samples and things that are black and red and all this on one hair. So
Mhm.
I wonder if that,
Just like in our hair as well, it's different
yeah,
shades and
yeah,
textures as you go through.
yeah. I've got brown and red and black and white, lots of white. But
Same, I got some under this beanie anyways.
I think a lot of times when people say, "Oh, it cloaked, it just phased out, it was just gone," I think a lot of times what had happened is that maybe it just dropped down. And I'm an old Marine, and I've seen some really, really big guys
Mhm.
that can lay down, and you will never see them.
I believe it.
So,
I 100% believe it.
yeah. Another thing that I want to mention too is that you had mentioned in another interview uh, that the mouth seemed impossibly wide as it was open.
Correct. Correct.
Now, with that being said, too, a primate, a lot of primate behavior that dealing with facial expressions and things like that is almost all primates will do it. They do a lip flip
Mhm.
where they curl their lip up, and that could have possibly covered the nose where you couldn't have seen it.
That's
And
definitely a
chimps will
distinct
actually
possibility.
do both. Their bottom lip will curl down and their top lip will curl up, and it makes the
Mhm.
mouth look like it's 3 times the size it actually is, because you've just got all this gum showing. But do you
Yeah,
think that maybe that's might have been what it was doing?
yeah, again, that's another possibility. I'm not unopposed to that being what it was, and honestly, it would make me feel better if that was, a natural thing that it was doing and not a, supernatural thing. Not that
Yeah.
they're not already creepy and supernatural anyway, as far as
And I mean, I say this all the time too. It's not like we have one. I don't have one tied up down at the barn. I can't walk
exactly.
down there and say that it does this and it doesn't do that and it doesn't do this and it doesn't do that. I have my own personal theories, and I try not to interject them on everybody, but I want to ask some questions
No,
and
I
try to dig
understand, I
in
think
there and
that's
see what
great.
the witness thinks too. That's pretty traumatic encounters, and that happened within the same year,
Yes, sir.
right? Both of them were 24, so you were probably about 15 both times.
About 15, 16, right in that area.
Yeah, that's
So, yeah.
pretty wow, that's pretty traumatic for someone that young. Uh,
I know it sounds terrible, but I was kind of done used to it by then. Um and then this gets really into the spiritual stuff a little bit more. I grew up in a very, religious household, but they were also very
mhm,
open to the spiritual side of things. So, as a child, I was constantly seeing things. I would see, shadows. I would see angel type figures. I would see ghosts that would come and visit me. Um, I would see, I just called them, everybody called them boogers,
yeah,
little, either little gremlin things. I've seen something that was basically looked like a dinosaur, a pterodactyl type. I've seen a giant white wolf that was basically, a dire wolf, as people call it. But yeah, it's just this massive white wolf. So I had seen and had all these experiences before, and I would have premonitions, my dreams would come true, all these kinds of things. So I guess that's why it really didn't affect me as much as some, because
mhm,
I was kind of already having so many of these experiences with things. I just kind of filed it in the back of my head that, it was just my sight that I had, that I was experiencing other things on this other side of the veil. My great grandma, who was the preacher's wife, she's gonna tell me as a little kid, she's like, "Oh, that's just the devil trying to mess with this because you have Jesus in you, and that you're shining your Jesus light." So I'm
yeah.
like, okay,
And
so
that's a big thing throughout the South too. I live right on the border between Virginia and Kentucky. We're right dead in the middle of the Bible Belt and everything.
oh yeah,
Uh,
right at hearing
well,
it.
growing up, if you believed, in Bigfoot, that Bigfoot was a demon, but everybody would talk
Mhm.
about Black Panthers. Oh yeah, we've seen Black Panthers. Bigfoot don't exist. We've seen Black Panthers.
Yeah, right,
Which,
right.
as I've gotten older now, I've seen both Bigfoot and a Black Panther. So,
Yeah,
that's kind of
that's
just
one
the
thing I
way it
haven't
goes.
seen. I've heard them cry, but I've had, my mom, well, actually, my dad, I know for sure has seen them several times. And, my mom actually saw, instead of a black panther, it was a panther that had a lion's mane and a poof on the end of its tail, like a
Oh
lion
wow,
would. So
wow, that's pretty incredible. Moving right on. I try to ask everybody this question on the show because I like to try to get into the headspace of each guest that we get, and it kind of makes the
mhm,
interview go a little bit better and stuff, and it kind of gives me a little bit better thought process, as to what's going on. The
mhm.
question is animal, mineral, or vegetable. That sounds really
Okay.
weird, but I'm going to
Alright.
explain it. Okay.
Alright, shoot.
Animal, do you think that Bigfoot is a living animal? Mineral, do you believe that Bigfoot might be extraterrestrial or interdimensional? Or vegetable, do you believe it may be spiritual? Or could it be a
I
combination of all that?
I say I am on the fence where I think it is a combination of all of that. I think that they are physical beings that have what we would describe as supernatural abilities, which would technically for them or for us possibly be natural abilities that we as humans just don't either understand or can't tap into. Maybe
Mhm.
they're what they would be more into the quantum realm, the like, the people statistic is that, supposedly we only use like 10% of our brains or something like that. Maybe these creatures or these beings have uh more access to more parts of their brain or subconscious where they can access some of these other abilities, because it's been proven theory that there is more than one reality, more than one dimension. So they talk about time and things, going, is three-dimensional. Then they're like, oh, there's the fourth dimension. What if they are able to access that kind of stuff and we're not, and we just don't have that? And then what if they got all of these abilities because they are um, gifted with more spiritual abilities, which then
Mhm.
goes into a lot of some of the biblical narrative, which I do still hold just because of my personal faith. That if they are descendants of Nephilim or Watchers, as described in at least
Uh-huh.
the Judeo-Christian um, religion and faith, then they would. Why wouldn't they be blessed with some of those abilities? Because it's
I
also
kind of
talked about in some other religions too. I think in Hinduism and things like that, I think it is mentioned. And, I know in, like, China and stuff like that with some of their stuff, with the urine, their abilities and things that they have, so
uh-huh.
I'll
I
like I said,
kind of
I
have
think that it could be any combination of all of that, and none of it would surprise me or be
yeah.
like, "Oh, darn, I was wrong," or I would be upset about it.
I kind of have my own theory. I'm an animal guy myself,
Okay,
and
ain't nothing wrong with
I'm
that.
open enough that I'll listen to anything.
Mhm,
You know what I'm saying? Uh, but one of my big things, and a lot of people, especially here in the South, go to that. It talks about them in the Bible. They're the Nephilim, but
mhm.
I don't really believe that, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because in Genesis 6, it says, and I don't talk religion on the show. I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to. Somebody needs to write a book on this. But Genesis 6, it describes the Nephilim as men of great renown.
Mhm.
Okay, it doesn't say that they're giants, or it says that they're giants, but it doesn't say they're giant, hairy, monsters. It says
Mhm.
men of great renown. And when you listen to the description of Goliath, who was supposedly a descendant of the Nephilim, he was a man,
Mhm.
not a big, giant, hairy, gorilla looking. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes, sir.
I steer away from that one. Uh, and you know, my thing is there's three major camps:
Mhm.
animal, extraterrestrial. That's the reason I asked the question, and
Mhm.
spiritual. And I think a lot of stuff gets muddled
Mhm.
between the group. Okay, people say, "Oh well, I'm not going to listen to her. She's on this spiritual thing. I'm out. I'm out."
Right, right.
But you can't do that. In order to get a true feeling for what's going on, you have to ask these questions. You have to get into it, because I did not experience what you experienced. You
Exactly.
you experienced that, and I think that's where a lot of researchers get sidetracked. They're not open
I
minded enough to listen.
I
And
100% agree with you there.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I try to take some time and actually get to get a feeling for what's going on.
Mhm.
And if you'll remember, Billy asked you earlier what kind of music you liked,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we have made you a song, so we're going to play your song for you right now. About the halfway
Okay.
point. Ready? Oh, come on now.
chain. Public libraries, the wisdom she brings of the creature that walks on the edge of all things. Build the mast, the Bigfoot Lady stands, researching secrets of the stimulants. Amanda Stowers with the heart of the brave, seeking the truth from the woods to the cave. Sasquatch walks in, the quest never ends. Beyond the mast, the Bigfoot Lady stands, researching secrets of the sunlight lands. Amanda Stowers with the heart of the brave, seeking the truth from the woods to the cave. Sasquatch, wiser. The quest never ends. Sasquatch, wiser. The quest never ends. Sasquatch, flashlight.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
That was
That is
kicking
probably
right
the
there.
best thing I've heard in forever. That is amazing. And I also got the silly giggles now because I'm like half embarrassed and half like impressed all at the same time. That was perfect.
I
I
had
love
to
it so
correct.
much.
I had to correct one person in the chat on the song.
Oh
Roger
no.
Hall
Okay.
said, I need to jam this in an '88 Camaro.
Okay.
And I said, no, Roger, it has to be an IROC Z with T-tops.
And then
Has
I'll
to be an
challenge
IROC
you
Z with
that and I'll
T-tops.
make it a 65 Mustang.
65 Mustang convertible GT.
GT. Yes, gotta be the convertible GT.
Yeah, that's a good one. That was
Or
that's
Corvette
probably.
Corvette Stingray.
Oh yeah, I'm a big Corvette Stingray guy.
Yeah.
Amanda, you work at Expedition Bigfoot Sasquatch Museum in Blue Ridge, Georgia, aka
Yes, sir.
Cherry Log, Georgia.
Cherry Log,
Uh,
Georgia. Yeah, Blue Ridge, Georgia, Cherry Log, Georgia.
Tell us about working at the museum. What's it like? What's the museum like?
Oh, it's amazing. You know, I'm a millennial, so I've worked many different jobs, many different things, and this has definitely been the where I feel like I've meant to be. Um, it's you just got your basics as far as retail goes and things like that, because the gift shop and helping keeping things running day to day. So you're helping to introduce families and kids, especially to the subject that is Sasquatch and Bigfoot, and just watching the children come in, especially, and just seeing the sense of wonder in their face, and then they're just like, "Oh my god, is Sasquatch real?" It's like all this, they're like, "See, mom, I told you." Just to, how do I put it? Just to reinstate that sense of wonder and to critical thinking, especially in young minds, is so important nowadays. We're so indoctrinated and told to think this and think this and think this, and not use the thing between our ears, that it's so good to have that. And that's one of the things that David Becerra, the owner and curator of the museum, that was the one of the things that he wanted specifically as a mission in building the museum that he did, is he remembered being a kid growing up in the 70s down in Florida and seeing all the news things that would come on about, oh, the skunk ape and the swamp ape and stuff, and then he'd be like, "Well, that's not what I'm learning in these textbooks that they're giving me." So, that was one of
Mhm.
the things he wanted about to do as far as the mission for it to, with building the museum. So, I got the job there in 2019. The museum itself opened in 2016. um, I was kind of nervous about it at first because, growing up here in North Georgia and, everything's starting to get very touristy. I was just like, "Oh man, this is gonna be something that's gonna be making fun of it. It's gonna be gimmicky, gonna have kooky animatronics and silly stuff." And I wasn't all too sure about it at first. But then I saw that they had a special guest coming. They were having Mr. Bob Giblin from the Patterson Gimlin film was coming to visit, and I was like, "Oh, snap," "he's getting on up there, if I'm gonna get a chance to see him, how amazing is this that, he's right here in my hometown. I could go and shake his hand and, tell him, thank you and just meet him." So I did. I went and I visited the museum, and I was blown away. I was so impressed with it. I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is, so good to see the subject matter of Bigfoot shown in a, I guess not a yeah, it is a positive light, but showing it from a non-cynical standpoint,
Mhm.
where it obviously they're not making fun of it, they're showing all these different things, all these, um, exhibits and artifacts, the knowledge. You've got everything from Native American lore to eyewitness accounts to, obviously your cast and things. My favorite's the audio stations where you can listen to the Sierra sounds and other vocalizations. So I went there, I met, the owner of the museum, shared my experiences with him. Flash forward a couple of years later, they posted that they had a job opening, and of course, I jumped all over that, and I ended up getting selected, and I got the job, and unfortunately, I had to leave during the pandemic. Hubby got work elsewhere during all of that. I had to leave for a few years, but I came back and I've been there all in total about 5 years, if you count both times, and I love it. Every day is a new adventure. Some days it's really boring, you're just, keeping answering the phones, running the register, keeping the gift shop stocked, and then there's other, days that you get a chance to, you're talking to like 4 or 5 different witnesses in a day. People who come in with their families and stuff and doing very similar to what I did, kind of checking it out, seeing what it's all about, and they'll come up to me at the register, just like, "So what do you think about all this?" Just really digging in right away now. I've gotten a lot more confident with myself than what I used to be. I'll say, "No, I definitely think there's something to this. I've had my own experiences, some of the other employees have, and things like that." And then they'll like, "Well, I haven't told a lot of people, but this happened." And next thing you know, they're sharing this fantastic encounter with me. Or it could just be something as simple as a classic, road crossing encounter, or they didn't see anything, they just heard
Mhm.
anything. But each one of those witness, testimonies is important to the research. I don't care what a lot of anybody says, without our witnesses and without their descriptions of things, you wouldn't have any of this information out there to start with. Yeah, you would have some
Nope.
odd prints and some weird hair that people know about, but as far as it being attributed to Bigfoot, you wouldn't have that. So even something as simple as, I just found footprints or I heard weird noises, those could be, even though they seem small, they could be big pieces to the puzzle, if that makes any sense. So,
Mhm.
it's really, really fun. I get to help, take in some of the reports, and now since I'm, doing my own social media as Amanda the Bigfoot Lady, and now especially co-hosting on Squatchin Holler with Roger and Ashley, um, a lot of people are coming to me with other reports and things, and the museum is handing me a lot of things that come to them with people wanting to have, talks or presentations and stuff like that. So I'm really getting my foot out the door when it comes to putting my face and my name out there in the Bigfoot stuff, and learning a lot as I'm going along for sure. And every day is interesting.
Well, we got a comment here from Mr. Thomas Steenberg. Says, Amanda, if you get the chance to talk to
I,
Bob, go for it. You
I
would be
have
amazed.
I have Mr. Steenberg. I've actually gotten an opportunity to meet him twice. Once was when I did go to the museum when he was there, when they early on, and then later he came back to the museum. It would have been right before the pandemic. He came, and I got a chance to meet him then, and I wish I had it. I knew that I was going to be talking about him. I actually have a picture of me with him, and I'm wearing his hat, which happens to be the same hat that he was wearing on Patty Day, as he calls it. So
Wow.
he's a
That's pretty
great
cool.
guy. He's super humble, down to earth. He's just an I hate to use the word, he's just an old cowboy, and I love that.
Oh, yeah. We got a question here from Mr. Mark Marcel. Question for Amanda. How has your own eyewitness verification experience affected you in receiving reports from individuals that you get reports from? Reports from individuals
Basically,
that give you their reports. I'm sorry.
that, I like you mentioned earlier, Gary, I listen to them all. Whether it's if somebody's coming to me, I'm just gonna use an analogy here. If somebody just comes up to me and say, "Hey, I saw pink polka dotted elephants in the woods, and here's what happened to me." Who am I to say that that's not what they saw and not what they experienced? Just like if somebody's gonna look at me and be like, "You didn't see that thing. You're crazy." I don't want what happened to me. People are like, "You're the crazy person." This person is looking for that that understanding person to listen to. They're like, a lot of times people they're so relieved. They're like, oh my God, it's so nice to talk to somebody who doesn't think that I'm crazy, especially when people are talking about some of these more obscure things, like with the cloaking, transformations, the telepathy, some of the more woo-woo stuff that I've heard people describe. So
And I think
just
that
listen to all of it.
all of it plays in. And I can't remember who I mentioned it to. It may have been Roger. I don't remember. But I think everybody's brain processes, and it is a traumatic incident when you see one.
Agreed.
Okay?
Absolutely. 100%.
Everybody's brain processes these traumatic incidents differently. And if you omit something because you think it's just too far out there,
Mhm.
I don't think you've actually gone far enough.
There you go.
You've got to be willing to listen to people and take into consideration what they think they've seen, they said they saw. I can't photographs. I hate to say it like this, but I hate blurry photographs
Mhm.
because it could have been like a world-class sighting, man. You could have saw Bigfoot, cooking a pizza in an earth oven out in the middle of the forest and snapped a photo of it, and I see a stump. I
Right.
wasn't there. I don't have the context. And without that context, I need to get every bit of the information that I can.
Agreed.
So I can try to process and, through scientific method, is it repeatable? Can this happen? Would sunlight have done? You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I always try to break everything down. And it can
Yeah,
be
were
really
they
tricky.
using a
Really,
modern camera? Were they using, an iPhone 1, you know, a
and
Polaroid?
that's something that
A lot of those things can, affect that kind of stuff as well.
a lot of people say, oh, well, everybody has a cell phone with a
Mhm.
camera and a video camera and everything on it. Why don't we have more good pictures? Okay, that camera is not a real good camera to start with. This is a 16. It's
Right?
not a good camera to start with. You're not going to get a good quality photo. You can get a good
Mhm.
quality photo of what you're eating at, Chipotle or whatever, and
Yeah,
put
I
it on
use
your
the
page.
example, like, you have a 16, I'm an Android person, so I got the S23 from 2 years ago, which it was high tech at its time, but it's already low tech as compared to my Nikon that's sitting over there, you know?
Yeah,
Just
and the best video that we have to date came from two guys on horseback with a wind-up movie camera in the 1960s. So there's a lot to be said. Technology is not the end-all, be-all. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Moving on. Amanda, you call yourself a couch researcher. I've heard you say that in interviews.
Yes. I
What do
know
you
you've
mean by
probably
couch
heard.
researcher?
I tease myself as being called a couch researcher just from other people I've heard in other Bigfoot groups and stuff like that. It's like, oh, unless you're a boots on the ground, out in the woods, you're not a real researcher. You're just a couch researcher. And I'm like, well, actually, some of us couch researchers that I could, I wear the title with sarcastic pride, just because of my weird humor. There's a lot that can be found in books and in listening to other shows like this, like, oh, actually that guy said something in this that actually reminded me of this one. I wonder if they could be
Mhm.
correlated together. um you need people who are data nerds to sort through the data.
Scientific
Just
process. Repeatable.
exactly. Exactly. And my personal thing right now that I've been really digging into is history stuff. I've been really digging into, like, old newspaper articles and things like that from pre 50, pre Bigfoot, when Bigfoot was the term. So that was
Mhm.
what, 57, 58, when
Somewhere in there, yeah.
somewhere there, yeah, the whole Bluff Creek thing happened. Well, not
That was
Bluff
ins
Creek, but it was the crap. I can put myself on the spot. I can't remember the name. The whole thing where it threw the barrels while they were
was the
plowing the
logging
road,
camp, but I can't think
the
of the guy's
logging
name.
camp.
Yeah, I can't think of the guy's name now.
Wha
Thomas, I know you know what it is.
Come on, Thomas, help me out, because you and his face are both on the wall there in the museum.
Uh, I'm gonna hop in there and do this one. You mentioned Booger. Booger, 1957, and
Mhm.
Sasquatch in 1924.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Uh, you mentioned Booger, and that's a really common term all throughout the southern United States. Booger, wood
Mhm.
booger. Here in Norton, Virginia, which is the next county over from where I live at, it's in Wise
Mhm.
County. They call it the wood booger. We have a wood booger restaurant and all this other stuff. The wood booger.
Mhm.
And all throughout the South, you hear about booger, 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 and nobody really knows where that come from.
Mhm.
I'm gonna try to educate you a little bit.
Oh,
I know
yes,
you
please do.
down there in Georgia, which is also home Jerry Crew.
Jerry Crew, thank you. I was like, "It's Crew, Crow,
1957.
something." It was like Ray. No, that's not right. Thank you, Jerry Crew. Thank you.
I think there was a Ray Crew though, but anyway, down there in Georgia, that's Cherokee homeland, Cherokee Indian homeland.
Mhm.
And the Cherokee Indians actually decorated and made masks and danced, and those masks were called booger masks.
Okay.
And they did the booger dance. And the masks were dressed up as the painted and made to depict other Indian tribes that the children were supposed to be afraid of and
Mhm.
things like that. And it just so happens that they had a booger mask of Sasquatch.
Okay.
So that's where the term booger comes from.
Interesting. I always had equated it to a lot of the Scotch, Irish, and German settlers here who settled, in Appalachia, especially that, it just kind of became a term for the boogeyman. The
Yeah,
boogeyman
well,
was always a thing from that. And
the booger
here in
man's gonna come
Appalachia,
and get you.
especially, yeah, the boogeyman's gonna come and get you. That they always add R to a lot of words is said. Like
Mhm.
up here, we have here in North Georgia, we have Amicalola Falls, which is a funny, not funny, fancy Cherokee name. A lot of people can't pronounce, but I always had grown up hearing it called Amicoler. Like I had
Yep.
an aunt who was, instead of Leola, she was Aunt Leeler. Everybody added R to the end of different things. So those are just a few examples. So that's just what I had attributed to, so I wonder if it could be
Yeah,
one and the
and
same. That's very interesting to think about.
yeah, they take it all from their Cherokee ancestry. You know, a lot of the Scottish and stuff that moved into the United States married into Indian tribes because they shared a lot of
Mm,
same beliefs and things like that together.
yeah.
Uh, like my family were Cherokee, Shawnee, and Scottish.
Okay.
So I got just enough Scottish in me to keep the anthropologist off of me. So it works out.
I like it. Yeah, I'm a
My
true
next
Heinz
question.
57 of Appalachia.
Yeah. My next question for
Scotch,
you
Irish,
is
and German,
tell us about the
Cherokee.
most tell us about the most interesting sighting reports you've received at the museum.
Well, that one is going to, really, really get into the woo-woo aspect of things. Um, the
Lay it
most
down.
interesting lay it down. So David has a story that he shares quite often that was one of the early ones he took at the museum. And a very, very short version of it is that here in the 70s, some kids were in a van going up into the top of the mountain. And the kid in the back seat, who was the recluse kid, him and a Sasquatch traded spots, or he transformed into Bigfoot. They don't know what. So it's very, very that's a very abbreviated version of it. So I was always like, man, I get all these really cool reports, of where they've been, loaded up by a revolver, completely dumped it straight in the chest and it not even phase them, as examples, where they've seen it, from just the waist down or from the waist up. I mean, but from the waist down is translucent as it's crossing the road, really bizarre stuff like that. But I was like, man, I really, what be the day I get something super, super out there. Well, it finally happened a few right after I started working back at the museum recently. Um, two ladies came in. They were very hippy dippy. One lady was she was Native American, so she had a lot of the turquoise on and things. And we started getting into a conversation about sixth senses and spirituality and those kind of elements. And as I'm going to let them into the museum, they're both pointing and talking. They're like, "Yeah, I was noticing that too." And they were pointing and whispering, and they were pointing at my shirt. And we're required to wear the logo T-shirt or sweatshirt, like what I got on right now, um, as we're working. And she was pointing at the the mask that is on the shirt, and I'll try to describe it for the audio listeners, but for the visual ones, this is the logo. So you got half of it is the tribal mask, and the other half is just a basic rendition of the creature. They were pointing to this side where it has like this hair and these dreadlocks that come off of it. They're like, yeah, that's just exactly like what we saw. And so they're just like, well, we've already been talking to her, tell her. So they finally convinced themselves to tell me that they were at a powwow in Colorado, and they were kind of at the back of the group. It was a really, really big, big group, and it had the big bonfire at the front, and they were enjoying themselves in the crowd and everything. They both at the same time got that like sixth sense, something sneaking up on them. And they need to look, and they turn and they look, and they're coming up, walking up beside them is a Sasquatch, but it is putting on a shirt. It was fixing the buttons on this button up shirt. And I really, really regret not asking them if it had the sleeves or not. Like, if it had like, Incredible Hulk popped out of it, or if it had just found it and was putting it on. But they said it looked at them and they were looking at it, and it just kind of gave them this grin like, yeah, you're seeing me. Yeah, I'm real. You can see me. And they watch it as it continues to walk further into the crowd at the powwow and continues to shrink down and take human form. It becomes a human. And the Sasquatch itself had little short hair, like little short dreadlocks as it was coming off. And that was what they were describing was here on the shirt was identical to what they saw. And they first, was looking at each other like, "Did they really see that?" But then they turned and the guy who was standing beside them saw the exact same thing, because he's standing there with his mouth open like, "Oh my god, I just saw the same thing." And it was another one of those things where it's like, "You can believe me or not, I know what I saw, take it or leave it." And who am I to say that that's not what those ladies saw, not what they experienced? Because there have been reports
Yeah.
of these things wearing clothes people have seen and said,
Mhm.
or them transitioning, or some people throw the Sasquatch into the whole skinwalker camp, which I don't think that they're connected. Um, where it could transform from Sasquatch to say a squirrel, or insert other forest animals. So who's to say that if they're interdimensional aliens or spiritual beings, they can't transform into human shape or whatever to blend in and hide from us or something. So, maybe he just wanted to come and enjoy the powwow as well, since it was, a spiritual activity. So take it or leave it. I thought it was super cool, and I can imagine I had a really weird look on my face because, as you can tell, I'm very animated, especially when I'm nervous or excited. Um, so I was trying to keep a straight face with them, listen to them. That's my crazy, most out there, outlandish, bizarre encounter that I've taken.
Wow, that's a good one. Uh,
Yeah.
the dreadlock thing in my own personal encounter,
Mhm.
what I saw did have kind of like dreadlocks, but it was from its wrist and its arm. The hair was longer. It was like
Mhm.
rolled up, and I think that
Okay.
that
Yeah, that
may
would
have
make
been
sense.
from the arm swing as it moved.
Exactly, and that would make
You
a lot
roll
of
the hair
sense.
up,
I worked in
and
veterinary medicine for a while, and you would see that in long-haired dogs and stuff, just the
mhm.
rub areas where they would get really dreaded up real easy.
And it kind of bothered me because that was one of the things that really stuck out in my own encounter. But I'd never heard anybody else say anything about it. And I'm like, man, people are going to think I'm lying because I saw these dreadlocks on its arms and all this other stuff. People going to think I'm full of crap. And nobody had ever mentioned that I knew of until I heard, Dr. Jeff Meldrum. Before he passed, he did a Bigfoot conference with the big team, the Bigfoot Investigative Group,
Mhm.
and he mentioned that some of the big males will have longer hair from their wrist down their arms, and sometimes it'll even be rolled up like dreadlocks. And I was like, oh, oh,
You're like, "Oh, there it
finally
is."
somebody says something about it. And that's one of the things. Yeah, verification. Anytime you can get that, it's good. Okay, so Amanda, I'm gonna go ahead and fair warn you now. If you got your tinfoil hat, you better put it on
Like I said a
because
minute
we're
ago,
gonna
I
get.
can grab it, and what
We're
I just shared with you, if I'm not already wearing my tinfoil hat, then
According to your TikTok page, we're going to say the weird thing. You know what I'm
yes,
talking
we
about.
are. Yes,
We're
I
going to
can
talk
tell
about
you that.
language. You say
Yes.
you believe Sasquatch has a language, and I'm sure
Mhm,
it's based off of the Ron Moorhead and Al Berry recordings in the
mhm.
1970s. What do you think? Let's get into it.
So I 110% agree with Ron Moorhead and Scott Nelson, just based off of what they've shared. The Sierra sounds and other recordings that sound similar to that is the Sasquatch talking to each other. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going with the animal theory, obvious us humans would have had a primitive language as we came up from knuckle dragging Neanderthals to where we are now. We developed language as we came up. It's been shown that other animals have ways of communicating with each other. So if these creatures have, vocal cords, tongues, mouths, lips, why can't they find ways of communicating via oral sounds? And Scott Nelson, I think he is the perfect person to be able to break all that down. Just from his resume, he was a cryptolinguist with the United States military. So he was the guy that like, hey, here's this weird audio, um, and they could bring it to him, and he's like, oh yeah, that's Russian, that's Afghani, that's Mongolian. Oh, that's some obscure language that they're not used to or not very popular, like, say English or Spanish or something. So he's the language guy, just like Dr. Jeff Meldrum, he's the foot guy, just because
Mhm.
his studies, Scott Nelson is the language guy and how he found it and everything, and he immediately recognized it as a language because you have separate individuals, the structures of the sounds, the way that they're making them is sentence structures of these individuals
Mhm.
communicating with each other. And I really wish that I could find the video of it. There's a video of somebody who had recorded Scott Nelson doing a talk. They refer to this as the samurai chatter, which I
Mhm.
first thought, and probably is true, that they called it that based off of, and this is going to sound very racist, but it's not meant to be. In the 70s, they had those terrible kung fu movies, samurai movies. So, wha cha 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 cha. So they maybe got the samurai chatter name from that. But also very
Mhm.
interestingly, I discovered Scott Nelson said that it actually reminded him very much of an ancient Japanese language mixed with some
Mhm.
kind of ancient Native American. And if you're going
Mhm.
off of the Bering Sea bridge, from the Ice Age or whatever, where they say that ancient man, traveled from Asia over here into North America, Japan and that area and Russia, that part of area would have been, the closest area to that would have come over here to the PNW area, which reminds him of the languages from that area. So it's kind of like a mix of the two. So I found it interesting that it's called samurai chatter, but it reminds Mr. Nelson of an ancient Japanese language, which Japan samurai. So I find that very very interesting.
Yeah, I've actually had the opportunity to talk to both Ron Moorhead and R. Scott Nelson, and
Awesome.
I talked to Scott at the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival in Townsend, Tennessee,
Hmm.
and what I discussed with him, and I'll go ahead and get into it, was the communication that you hear in that. I believe it's some type of communication. Now, all
Hmm.
animals communicate. Okay, not
Correct.
all animals have a language, but all animals communicate. And I agree it is some kind of communication. I can't really get my head wrapped around whether it's an authentic language
Hmm.
or not. But I will say this: it is a very Asian sounding thing. And I brought that up to him. I said it sounds really Asian. I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan,
Okay.
and when you hear a Japanese national speaking to another Japanese national, it's not like me and you just sitting here talking right now. It's
Hmm.
it's really fast.
It is.
It's really
Yes,
fast.
they speak very fast, which I imagine they would say we speak very fast too.
Yeah,
If
but
being a
so,
non-English speaker, anyways.
and another thing too that I really get into a whole lot is that all throughout Native American history, Bigfoot is a mimic. Bigfoot
Hmm.
mimics everything. It can make owl sounds, bird calls, animal calls,
Yep.
everything. And there's even some parts in like the Cherokee, they say that they actually taught Bigfoot to speak some Cherokee. Okay,
Okay.
now with that being said, too, I hear what I think is Bigfoot trying to mimic Ron and them at that camp. Now, when you're at a deer camp or whatever, and I'm not trying to be sexist by any means,
No,
but
it's
it's
alright.
men out there. They're probably having some adult beverages. They're probably being pretty rough, and a lot of foul language and things like that. But I actually believe that I hear Bigfoot trying to say, and especially if you listen to Sasquatch Chronicles, they play that one clip on there. It sounds like Bigfoot says, "What the F?" And it's
I'll
really
have to
quick.
pay attention to that. Yeah.
Yeah, listen to it. And I think that is Sasquatch trying to mimic what it heard them say.
That's
And if
interesting.
you listen to the Sierra sounds, when you hear Ron Moorhead, and I asked Ron about it, I said, Ron, when they hollered at you and you hollered back at them, I hear them laughing. He said, oh, yeah, they was laughing. He said, they laughed at me. And I said, do you have any regrets about any of that? And he said, I wish I would have just spoke to them. He said, I really think that they had something to tell me, and I shouldn't have been mocking them. I shouldn't have been mimicking them. He said, I should have just spoke to them. And that really impacted, that's pretty heavy stuff,
That is actually.
So that's pretty interesting. And, that's Roger Hall brought up a good point. He has an African gray parrot that was capable of thinking like a 4-year-old. Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah,
and I mean, all animals are
I've
like
heard
that.
myself working at the vet's office.
It's pretty incredible when you get into this whole language thing. There is so many different things that you hear in that. And it does sound like it has inflection. One of them was mad at the other one for doing something. And you could hear it in their voice. You don't have to hear the words that my wife says to me sometimes, but she's mad at me. Just by the way she says it. So that's, I find it really interesting. And I mean, there's a lot of points to be made on that. And if it does turn out to be some type of, I don't know, pre-human language or something like that, there is so much that we could learn from that.
Agreed.
It's incredible. But that's one of we're going to ask the weird things. Now, I know you're a big conspiracy girl. And unfortunately, you're on there with a real conspiracy nut. I like conspiracies. So we're going to talk conspiracies for a minute. Do you think the government knows the truth about Sasquatch?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I think they do. In fact, I don't think they do. I know that they do. I'm sorry?
Expand a little bit. What makes you think that they have one? Or they know?
Why wouldn't they at this point? So we as a nation, just the United States, have expanded from the East Coast all the way over to the West Coast and back again. Yes, there is tons of wilderness and stuff that hasn't quote unquote technically been explored, but with all of the technology that we have, and you could expand more on this just from your military experience. I'm a second generation military brat myself. Supposedly per technology, like just the cell phones and stuff like that we have, for example, what technology they are giving us now is what they've already had 20 years ago in dark circles per se. And so if they have satellite and GPS and all this stuff, how long have they had that they can track heat signatures? There's reports from former military who have gone in and been tasked with outing or offing an entire family or a rogue Sasquatch that's causing mischief in a particular area. So if I 100% believe they do, because they would have been able to have tracked them. They would have been able to have found them. And if per se they have some of these abilities that they may or may not have, that I think they do, who's to say that they're not using them for study for some of the darker stuff that they have been studying, that they've tried to do with some of the 3-letter agencies tried to do with us in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, so, and believe it or not, the 3-letter agencies, I believe, tune in on podcasts and stuff from time to time just to see what we're talking about.
Hi, Gary. That's an inside joke between me and Ashley. Oh, your name is Gary, so yeah.
I'll
Gary
say
was
this.
1R.
I'll say this. In my tenure of the United States Marine Corps, I got out in 1992.
Okay.
I was out probably before you were born.
No, I was 7, but yeah.
Anyway, the U.S. Navy has satellites, and they had them when I was in, and they're U.S. spy satellites, and they use those to identify foreign vessels.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everybody's ships kind of look the same. How do you identify them? Blah, blah, blah. They take pictures of them, and they count the rivet pattern in those pictures. Okay, if you're taking a photo from outer space onto the surface of the ocean, and you can zoom in tight enough that you can count the rivet pattern
Mm-hmm.
on the side of a ship, I'm sure there's something else that you could be taking pictures of.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Another thing, too, military bases are full of Bigfoot reports.
Mm-hmm.
All over.
All over.
Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. I'm a Marine, so I know more of the Marine bases. Quantico Marine Station here in Virginia has a Bigfoot there that they call the Quantico Monster.
Okay.
So these military bases are huge.
Mm-hmm.
Huge. And they're not really that occupied. I mean, there's a lot of people on it, but there's big empty swaths of that most of the time there's nobody there. So that would be a perfect environment for some type of cryptid to live in because they're not going to get messed with. So yeah, I do think the government knows. I really do.
Oh yeah.
Do you think the government is suppressing Sasquatch evidence?
Yep. 100% for some of the exact same reasons. And people ask me that all the time. It's like, well, why would they be hiding it? Wouldn't they be trying to, bring it out? It's this undiscovered species and whatever. You got 2 camps there. If this is, just an undiscovered, primate that, it might have a low population. Oh God, this is putting it into the endangered species category now. So, now we've got to stop all of this logging. We've got to stop all this mining and all this progression. And oh God, our base is here right over top of a Sasquatch habitat, and it becomes this whole logistical and paperwork nightmare if they quote unquote prove them to be real. And then secondly, if they are just a subspecies of human or a proto-human or what does Dr. Meldrum and them call them? Relic hominids. Relic hominids, or if they're just another people, like, another like us compared to, Native American, natives or whatever. Please don't take that in the wrong connotation. Could they make them pay taxes? How would they get them under their controlled thumb that I feel like they can't control them. So it's a problem for them.
I kind of have my own thoughts on that too. I think the reason that there's not a big push for the government to say, yeah, they exist and everybody will say, oh, it's because of the logging industry, or it's because of this industry, or it's because of that industry. And I think that's another smoke and mirrors type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where people get trapped into it where they think, oh, well, it's because of this or it's because of this. I think, and this is conspiracy dude, I think it has nothing to do with the logging industry or anything like that. I think it has to do with a multi-billion-dollar industry here in the United States that is the recreation industry.
Yes.
How many people are going to go camp somewhere where there's an 8-foot-tall, 1,200-pound man monkey that can rip your arm off and beat you to death with the wet end?
Mm-hmm.
How many people are going to hike into these really remote areas and spend thousands and thousands of dollars to hunt elk or anything else like that when there is an 8-foot tall, 1,200-pound monkey man that's going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the recreation industry, it would be a dramatic drop in camping equipment, hunting equipment, fishing equipment, general outdoor stuff, hiking. It would be a huge deficit. And I think that has a lot to do with it. And realistically, too, when you think about it, people say, oh, well, if they prove that they are some type of relic hominid, then they would have human rights and all this other stuff. But in the same respects, humans, don't we share 98% of our DNA with chimpanzees?
Mm-hmm.
Them dudes ain't paying no taxes.
Right.
They pretty much doing what they do. So yeah, I think a lot of stuff is suppressed, and I think a lot of it too, and and this goes out for everybody that's listening. Like I said, I'm an animal guy. Okay. Unfortunately for a lot of us that take reports and things like that, you get the 3-tooth guy from Hillbilly Hill that says, I saw this booger come out and it did this and it did that. Well, what'd you do? Well, I went back in the trailer. So that makes it all seem like it's a bunch of just lies, And then the same thing happens during these big storms too. They never interview somebody that's got some common sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's always somebody that's just lost a trailer in a hurricane. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, yeah, I think a lot of it is suppressed. Now, here comes the big one. Do you think that the United States government has a specimen, aka a body?
Oh, absolutely. I thought we'd answered that already in the other questions. But yeah, I 100% believe they do. Because I mean, if they're sending people, or when I say people, as in soldiers and stuff, to go in and take these out, why wouldn't they keep the body for study?
Greg Hauser just chimed in. He says, I believe the Vatican helps keep it covered up. If I'm not mistaken, there is a painting in the Vatican that has a depiction
there is
of a hairy wild man on it.
Yeah, there's
Why would that be hanging?
depictions in the Vatican. There's and one of my favorites, if you saw in one of my presentations, in the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo painted a booger in a cave in something. They have wild man depictions throughout history in cathedrals all over Europe. Wild man is just as much a part of their folklore and stuff as Sasquatch and burgers are here for the Native Americans here in North America.
And and that's something too that it's hard to get. And I hate to say it, but it's hard to get a lot of people to really understand what you're dealing with. You're not dealing with a United States thing. Okay, it's the United States, it's Canada, it's Mexico, it's South America, it's Central America, it's Europe, it's Asia, it's everywhere, everywhere. And I don't think they're all necessarily the same. I think they are the same, but I think you have different subspecies like the orang pendek and things like that in Indonesia that are smaller. And then the further north you go, the bigger they get. You get up into Alaska, and there's reports of 12 and 14 foot Bigfoot, which Bergman's Law says, the closer to the equator you get, the smaller things get, and the farther from the equator you get, the bigger they get.
Yep.
So that kind of follows that. That makes a lot of sense. And, with that all being said, it's not just a United States thing. I think, and it's not necessarily, I'm not necessarily going to hop on the, SEAL Team 6. There's a story about the SEAL teams taking one out in North Carolina. Okay. I don't know if that's true or not. That's above my pay grade. But anyway, if they did, they're not going to leave it laying there.
Yep.
For some, moonshiner to stumble up on and get famous with.
Right.
So I think if they did take one out, they're going to take it. There's going to be no evidence left. And
just like they wipe up a whole bunch of other stuff. Got to make sure that
yeah, you know,
the scene of the crime is per se is wiped clean.
Yeah, and you know the government is not clean. There's a lot of blood on their hands, and it's a lot of our own U.S. people too.
Yes, sir.
You know, they tested nerve agent on people in the, I don't remember if it was the 40s or the 50s. They actually exposed an entire town to nerve agent just to see what would happen. There was the, I think it was in Chicago. They picked a predominantly black neighborhood, and they infected so many men with, I believe it was syphilis in that neighborhood.
I think they did that in the South as well. I think in the Mississippi Delta, if I remember right. I think they did that as well. I know
it may have been. It's bad.
It is. Yeah, not to mention some of the terrible stuff they've done up here in Appalachia too.
Oh yeah, and it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon.
Unfortunately, no.
Anytime soon. Okay, that's enough for conspiracies before I get shut down. But
yeah, let's not have that happen to you.
You know, I'm from Appalachia. I was born and raised in the town that I live in. I left and joined the Marines. I got out of the Marines. I lived in California for a little while, and then I moved back here. Okay, Appalachia is a vast region. Okay, I mean it is vast. A lot of forests, a lot of farmland. Where do you think throughout Appalachia is the best place for Sasquatch?
Oh man, it's going to be a tie between the Smoky Mountain region just because of containment theory, which goes back into our tinfoil hat stuff, and honestly just West Virginia, because West Virginia, the entire state is encompasses Appalachia as a whole. So as far as a single state goes, I think that one would be really high up there just because again, it's all mountains, and it's a low population compared to many of the other places. So they got more room to hide, less people to bug them. But that's just Appalachia. I mean, they're everywhere.
West Virginia is a good call. I agree with that 100%. The Smoky Mountains have got, Jesus, hundreds of reports.
Hundreds. Yeah. Yeah, I've taken a couple of reports myself from there.
I read a bunch. One of my favorites happened up around Klingman's Dome in Gatlinburg.
Okay. I'm smiling because I have something to go with that.
There were some guys that was up there. They were in college and they were just working with the park rangers, you know, to make some summer money. And they had to hike in. These guys were supposed to be on a hike, and a big snowstorm hit, and they hadn't reported in that they'd made it or left. So they sent these college kids up there to try to hike in towards Klingman's Dome and find them. Well, the further they hiked, the worse the snow got. I'm talking about it's feet of snow. And the two guys that was hiking had got scared and turned around and went to their vehicle and just drove home and didn't tell anybody. So these guys hiked up there. They got to a ranger's cabin, unlocked the ranger's cabin, and got in to try to shelter for the night. And they'd fired up, you know, their little cooking stoves, and they had ate, and they were getting ready to go to bed. And they said something ran around that cabin all that night, smacking on the side of that cabin. And there was tracks around the cabin. And they got up the next morning with very little sleep, packed their stuff, and hauled off that mountain as fast as they could get down. So that's a good.
That is a good one.
Yeah,
I think I've heard one similar to that one. I took a report personally from a gentleman who, him and his wife, who was at his time his girlfriend, and possibly some others, drove up to Klingman's Dome, and it was right after it opened. Right after they opened it and built the little tower to go up to it. and they for whatever reason, they went at night, like teenagers do, and, they were hiking from the parking lot up to it or back down, I can't remember exactly, but it was dark, dark night, and they were being paced and followed by a giant, dark humanoid figure, and every time they would turn the eyes, they would see how high up it was, and it would pace them as they were coming down the hill, trying to basically not want to mess with them, but mess with them to make them go away. And they did. They got
Mhm.
away real quick. They talk about how scared they was and, they him and his wife were both, retelling the same thing. It would cross the path in front of him just out of sight because, it's night, so, just it's not too far from him, but just enough where you couldn't get quite a good glimpse of it, but it's very obviously, a bipedal creature of some sort that was pacing them. So, I always thought that one was really interesting because that was right after Klingsman's Dome opened.
Yeah, the Klingman's Dome that's a spooky place.
It is spooky, I agree. There's
Once
some
it gets
energy
dark, I
there.
mean, it's not like a gradual fade to black. It's just
Mhm.
like you're walking the trail 1 minute and everything's fine, and the next minute you can't see nothing. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just like turning a switch off. It gets dark. It
Yeah,
is
I've
pretty
never
creepy.
been up there at night, but I can imagine. The only times I've ever been
Yeah,
up there is the day, and I just love the view from up there. Nothing from it can be beat.
and the road is not exactly ideal on the way up there either.
No, no, it
Can be
ain't.
it can be rough. But I agree with both those Smoky Mountains, West Virginia. Uh, like my own personal sighting happened within a half a mile of my house
Mhm,
where I'm at right now. So, it's I think throughout Appalachia, and then I grew up in the '70s and the '80s. Okay, I
mhm.
graduated high school in '88. I can remember In Search of coming on, playing the Patterson and Gimlin film, and I always thought, yeah, man, that thing is real. Look at that thing. It's
Mhm.
walking, it's real. And then you would hear the Sierra sounds, and I'm like, yeah, man, they're talking, man. That thing is real. So I always had a belief that it was real,
Mhm.
and I always thought, well, that's a West Coast thing. It's a West Coast thing. And I had my sighting in 2006, and I'm like, dude, that's not a West Coast thing. That stuff is here.
Right?
And if it's here in Stumpwater, Virginia, it's everywhere.
Yep.
And there's a lot of debate on population. What do you think? What are your thoughts on population?
Um, my thoughts on it is very similar to others that I've heard, and, that population is low as far as compared to other creatures and species. I think the statistic out there is that by minimum, they have to have, like, 4 to 5,000 just to have a sustainable
Mhm,
breeding population without inbreeding. But then
mhm.
again, if there's these such remote, vast areas, there's the theories of them using cave systems and stuff to travel. And then, especially if you get into them being interdimensional and spiritual beings, there could be as many of them as they want. As far as we know, they could have there's a whole nother planet of Sasquatch out there, with millions of them on it that are being dropped off here by aliens. Or, if like I said, if they're spiritual, they can be as many of them as they want. I'm just throwing out hyperbole examples there. But yeah, as far
So
as animal go, I think it would be probably at the low end of 4 to 5,000. I think it's probably closer to 10 or 20 myself.
yeah, I agree with that. I think it's more than 5,000. I think we're probably upwards, maybe 20 or 30.
Mhm.
But I'm going to release my inner Star Wars nerd. So, do you think that there is, if the possibility is that it's extraterrestrial and interdimensional, do you think that there is like a Kajik homeworld where Chewbacca came from? Do you think there's
Oh,
a whole
absolutely.
planet?
Absolutely. Or what if they are the prisoners of some other species and then they're the ones who are dropping them off here for some nefarious reasons.
Oh,
What if Kashyyyk
Thomas
has been
Steamboat.
taken over by the Saiyans and the Saiyans are dropping them off here or something?
Oh yeah. Thomas Steenberg says there's one Sasquatch per every 100 bears in any given area.
Yes. Yeah,
And if
thank you.
that's
That's
the
one of the
truth,
statistics out there.
there's a lot of them.
Mhm.
There's a lot of them.
There is. Yeah,
And
there's a really cool map out there where somebody took, it's the geographical, United States map with all the dots for Sasquatch sightings and then like bear habitat areas in the United States and overlaid them over top of each other. And it's you might as well just put like 90% of all the Bigfoot sightings in bear habitat areas. So I find that really interesting.
they I think that happens that they overlap in those bear existence areas because they have to have the same environment.
Correct.
They're relying on the same food sources, water sources, land area, things like that. And I think the habitat is really similar. A lot of scientists will say that there is, not enough food in the arboreal forests of the United States for a large population of an upright primate. Okay, that's not true. There were
Correct.
thousands, if not millions, of Native Americans that lived here for thousands of years before the first explorers ever reached the United States. And they lived here.
Right.
So there is enough food out there. So that's kind of a, I think that's another
kind of
smoke and mirrors
a
type.
misnomer per se.
Yeah, fake news, as they say.
Right.
But
Fake news.
yeah, and with Sasquatch being more prevalent now, do you think that there are more encounters because people are more observant, or do you think that there's more encounters because there might be a larger population?
That's a good question. I think there's more reports now just because people are more open about it. Because Sasquatch has definitely become more mainstream and, thanks to, certain TV shows and
Mhm.
podcasts and stuff like that, and the internet especially, people are a lot more open to it instead of being a lot more closed off about it like they used to. But no, I think sightings of these things are just as numerous back then as they are now. And when I say back then, I'm talking like all the way back into like Native American times and stuff.
I'm gonna go on the other side of the coin with that one and say that
Mhm.
I actually think that the population is growing,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna base this on my own personal observations.
Mhm.
Uh, when I grew up in this county as a young child, I saw one deer my entire life. Okay, I turned 18, joined the military, I left, I come home, and when I come home, there was a deer season in my county. I drive up my driveway right now, and if I don't see at least 5 deer in my yard, there's something wrong.
Right?
Okay, I can't plant anything here. The deer will eat it. Now I never saw one growing up, not one, or just one.
Mhm.
One. Bears. I never saw a bear up to within the past 10 years.
Mhm.
And bear are everywhere in this county now. You can
Yeah.
see a bear everywhere.
S it
Animals are
there's
repopulating. And I don't know if it's just, they've kind of got the swing of things or what, but, animals that weren't here before are here now. Coyotes. We never had any coyotes here.
Yeah, whoever was the
You know?
bright person to reintroduce coyotes to certain areas, I would like to find them and have a few words.
Yeah. Oh,
Probably a
yeah.
few more probably more than words, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I think that the population is growing because we have elk in my county now.
Mhm.
We never had any elk here. The eastern elk was wiped out hundreds of years ago. We never had any elk here. We have elk now, and I'm talking about world class elk.
Mhm.
I think the Virginia state record was taken this year. It was a 7x7, just about maybe 45 minutes from where I live at now.
Okay.
So, yeah, huge. And with this increase of food sources, the deer, the elk, all this other stuff, I think that they are populating more because they can. Wild animals, you don't hear about wild animals really overpopulating
Mm-hmm.
because something always happens. So I think, that with the increase in food sources that the population is increasing. And I think that
That's
leads
a good
maybe more
theory.
to, yeah. And, like I said, I try to support it with things that I've observed myself,
Mm-hmm.
and, during the pandemic, there was towns where, people hadn't seen, like mountain goats, like in Italy and places like that, they hadn't seen mountain goats, but all of a sudden they were walking up the street
Right,
because
right.
there was no people. So yeah, it's I think it's a real plausible possibility. I kind of wish I had the initials and stuff behind my name to where I could kind of put a stamp on it, but I don't. I'm just
Some
some.
of those initials don't necessarily mean something. I think some of us, what do you want to call it? I hate to call it more plain folk, are probably a lot smarter sometimes and more experienced per se in our knowledge
Yeah,
than a lot of folks with
yeah,
multiple letters behind their names.
and too, like I said, it is, and I do agree with you 100%. It is more open now.
Hmm.
Uh, you still see people. Oh, there's Gary, the Bigfoot guy, and they'll laugh or whatever. That doesn't bother me. That's another old
Hmm.
Southern term. If you talking about me, you're letting somebody else rest. So
Yeah.
that doesn't faze me. But I think it is more prevalent, and I think it is more open, and it is talked about a lot more. And my only wish is that we had more, you know, scientists. I mean, actual, honest to God scientists that would take it seriously enough to actually sit down and do a study on
Hmm.
it, just to see. And, I'm kind of waiting on this study, this DNA study coming out of North Carolina right now to see what the results of that are going to be. I'm like, man, I'm really pumped up about that.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I want to know. And that's the thing. As soon as I had my sighting, I stopped believing it was real.
Hmm.
I know it's real.
There you go.
I know it's real. So I'm excited to see what it is.
Hmm.
You know, like I'm kind of weird anyway. Like one of my favorite animals is an okapi. I don't even know if you know what an okapi is. It's a
I
forest
might,
giraffe.
but I'm gonna let you tell me because I can't think.
They look like they're made out of spare parts. They have striped legs like a zebra. They kind of have
Oh,
a
okay.
head like a cross between a giraffe and a horse. And they
Hmm.
have a longer neck, not like a giraffe's neck. It's more like a horse's neck. It looks like it
Hmm.
was built out of spare parts. And people thought it was fake because, hey, it looks like it's built out of spare parts.
Hmm.
But, it's real. It exists. It's there. And, people will say that there's no evidence that Bigfoot exists. We have footprints, we have sightings. Uh, there's all kinds of evidence out there, but it's not, that really concrete what we're looking for. And I'm
Hmm.
hoping this DNA study will actually come up with something, if nothing else, just to form a baseline.
Agreed.
Okay,
Yeah, that would be
this
really
is
good.
the
So
unknown primate thing is wore thin.
yeah, so let me pick your brain real quick on that subject. So if with all of this evidence that we have, the footprints, hair samples, the witness testimonies, some pictures, some video, in some not camps, um, other scientific things like, with other animals, they can take just a picture or a witness testimony and combine those two and be like, okay, this is a species. This is a new undiscovered species here in the Amazon jungle. They discover new bugs and stuff like that every year. Why do you think that with all of this
Mhm.
evidence that we already have, why do you think that the quote powers that be or the quote scientific folks don't accept it as proof enough to say that Sasquatch is a real species?
Okay, and again, too, I don't want to be offensive.
Oh,
That's
no,
my
you're
big
good,
thing.
don't worry.
Uh, we're not smart enough.
Mhm,
Straight up, and I'll tell you why. For starters, number one, we can't get mainstream scientists. That's what it
mhm,
takes to prove the existence of a new animal.
mhm,
Mainstream science. Number two, credible evidence. A lot of the evidence that we got is questionable. Uh, and I mean, like I can take a footprint and cast it, and it be 100% genuine, and I can show it to you, and you're like, "Well, where'd you get this from?" Well, out in the woods.
mhm,
No. So you see what I'm saying? It's we have to have. And I say this all the time too. This the Bigfoot community at large is so divided. Okay,
agreed.
if we was to bring all of this, we all have this evidence right here around this outside edge. We all have this evidence. Okay, I'm not sharing my evidence with Amanda the Bigfoot lady because she's a woo woo, and Amanda the
Mhm,
Bigfoot lady's not sharing her evidence with blah 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 over here because they're spiritual and all this other stuff. You see what I'm saying? If we was to bring all
mhm,
of that that's around here together into a really tight, and I say it all the time, a laser point, we
mhm.
could prove it.
Laser focused.
Just as citizen scientists, we can prove it.
Agreed.
That's the thing. And until, this group quits fighting with this group and this group quits fighting with that group and everybody comes together, we're not going to prove anything because no legitimate scientist or scientific team or anybody else wants to sign on with a group that can't agree with what each other says.
I 110% agree with you.
And, like I
100%.
said, I'm the guy, I'm the weirdo in the Bigfoot world because I can take what you say and write it down and see valid points in it. Then I can take what somebody else says, write it down. Oh, valid points in that. And then, all this other stuff. And I can see all of that come together and make sense. But if I'm so biased in my own opinion that I don't want to listen to, the woo side of things, then I'm actually missing evidence.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't want to miss any evidence. Look, I've seen this thing. I cannot tell you what it is. I want to know.
Mhm.
And if you've got something that's going to help me know what it is, I want it. That's
Yep.
that's my whole goal. I want to know what I saw. And I say this too on the show quite a bit too. Uh, when you have a Bigfoot sighting, it's like dope. You're hooked.
Yeah, you're hooked. You're hooked.
I am. I'm hopelessly hooked. I am. I want to know. I want to know what's out there. Uh, I want to know how it lives, what it is. Okay, if it comes out that it is some type of ape, I'm good with that. If it comes out that it's some type of pre-human, I'm good with that. If it comes
Mhm.
out that it might be extraterrestrial or interdimensional, okay, I'm a little scared of that. If it comes out that it's spiritual, I'm really, really scared of that.
Mhm.
Okay, that's got a lot to do with my own personal beliefs. We all
Mhm.
have our own belief system. But no matter what it is, and I don't care which one it falls on,
Just
I
wanna
want to
know.
know what it is.
Yep.
Yeah, because I saw it and I wasn't alone when I saw it. There was somebody with me and they saw
Mhm.
it. So I know I didn't imagine it. I know I didn't misidentify it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I really want to know. And that's my thing. And, I'm talking it to death. We've been on it
You're
almost 2
good.
hours now. But, that's my thing. I want the information. And I think that 90% of the people that are into this, and I'm going to quote Thomas Steenberg right here. I have a lot of respect for Thomas Steenberg. He's been doing this a long time. He's a
He
great
has.
guy. Follow the facts. That's what he says all the time. Follow the facts. And I don't care where the facts lead. I just want a honest to God answer. This is what it is. If it is a Neanderthal, Gigantopithecus hybrid, I want to know. If it's my third cousin's half brother's ex-wife's cousin, I want to know.
Right? And I think that in the Bigfoot community, that's honestly what everybody wants, is that we just all want to know, but then you get egos thrown in there and a lot of other, all the gobbledygook, as I'm going to call it, like just like you described, you got this side and that side. If we can all just come together and stop fighting and just listen, you'd be surprised how much you could gain from that. And it's actually very refreshing to hear like-minded opinions on that.
And too, like I said, a lot of times we're our own worst enemy in this field. Okay. I'm not, you have some guys, Cliff Barackman.
I've heard both.
Yeah. Cliff is a footprint guy, and he's really good at what he does. Okay. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, footprint guy, vast knowledge of footprints, foot morphology. One of his big theories was he thought that it was a robust Australopithecine. I don't agree with that, because we had robust Australopithecines about 2.8 million years ago. Lucy was one of them. Well, actually, she was just an Australopithecine. It is Paranthropus boisei and Paranthropus robustus. That was the two robust Australopithecines. They were still about the size of a chimp. So we're not hitting the 8-foot mark.
Right.
Then you have Gigantopithecus blackeye, which, was this huge 8 to 10 foot. And we don't know if it was bipedal. We don't know if it was quadrupedal. They have a jawbone and a lot of teeth.
Yeah, that's all we got off of it.
Yeah. And, a lot of people say, oh, well, that's the biggest ape walking. That has to be what it is. Well, maybe not necessarily.
But it's a good start as far as the theory goes.
Yeah, Gigantopithecus, I think, was more closely related to orangutans than it was like gorillas.
I think so as well.
So I don't see, the correlation there. And then we have, the religious side that says, oh, they're Nephilim. And I don't necessarily believe that, because, it says they were men of great renown. Well, then, you have the Kashyyyk homeworld theory. That's how. And then you have I even heard one theory that Bigfoot was ghosts of Neanderthals.
I've heard that one as well, actually.
And, you take all of these theories and you throw them in a blender and you blend them up. And you come up with nothing. You have more questions than you'll ever have answers. I think if we all sit down and we all just compare the stuff that we have, whether it's footprints, audio, DNA, hair, whatever, we all get together, sit down, lay it out. This is what we have. This is what we're working with. This is our reports. This is our reports. This is our reports. Let's put them all together. See what's in common. The scientific method, is it repeatable? Okay. And I know I've heard you talk about Dogman too. But I'm going to say this about the Dogman, and this is my own personal opinion now. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not trying to bash anybody's personal opinion or anything.
No, go for it.
I'm fascinated with the thoughts of there being an American werewolf. Okay.
Mhm.
I really am. I'm fascinated with it. Everybody says, oh, you had the Land Between the Lakes incident where it killed those people in the camper. There's no reports of that, no police reports, no nothing. It's kind of a fourth hand story from somebody. I don't know.
Mhm.
Now, when it comes to visual reports of the dog man, okay, upright, canine, muzzle, and that's about it.
Mhm.
Everything else shift. Oh, it had big pointed ears. Oh, I didn't see any ears on it at all. Oh, it had a big long shaggy tail. No, it didn't have no tail at all. Oh, it was standing up on 2 feet. No, it's down on all fours. There's no
Mhm.
consistency.
Mhm.
Now, I can go to China and describe the Bigfoot that I saw. And they're going to say, oh, yeah, that's a Yeren.
Mhm.
Or you can go to Indonesia and I can describe the Bigfoot that I saw. That's the orang pendek.
Mhm.
Or anywhere you go in the world, you describe Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the wood booger, whatever you want to call it, anywhere in the whole world, and somebody's going to say, yeah, we got that. We got that.
Mhm.
That is the consistency that we're looking for. That's repeatable.
Mhm.
Everybody's encounters are similar. The differences are height, color, body mass. Like the one I saw was freaking huge. It was like the Incredible Hulk with red hair all over it. It was
Mm.
huge. It's probably like
He's a
three
big
and a half,
boy.
4 foot. Yeah, from back to chest, it's 3.5, 4 foot. I mean,
Whew.
he was huge, huge. And I've heard reports of them being really tall, 8 foot, 8.5 foot, really slim, gangly, kind of like a professional basketball player.
Mhm.
Okay. Now that body mass thing, that's different. But the overall reports are the same. It is repeatable.
Mhm.
So that's what we've got to get together as a community and do is find what we all have in common, which is a thirst for knowledge to know what this thing is, and move forward as a group instead of individuals and
Yes.
accomplish this. That's the thing. And on my show, like I said, I'm talking it to death. But on this
Oh, you're
show,
fine.
I try to have guests on that have some relevant information, something that we can all work with, something that we can all use, something we can all go on. And I've had Cliff Barrickman's been on the show. Ron Moorhead's been on the show. Uh, Dr. Jeff Meldrum's been on the show. Doug Highcheck's been on the show. We've had a lot of big people on the show. And we're still all moving to the exact same point.
Mhm.
But we're all at different places.
Mhm.
And one of the biggest things too, and I say this a lot too, one of the biggest things that hurts everybody that's into this and try to legitimately prove something works, something is right, something is here, whatever. The people that go out and hoax things,
Yes.
sightings, body, footprints, whatever, that destroys every bit of the credibility that any of us have.
Correct.
And I don't understand why people do it, but there's more people that want to do it than not. And unfortunately, in this community, everybody runs around, points fingers. You're hoaxing. You're hoaxing. You're hoaxing. You're hoaxing. You're hoaxing. And how is somebody from like the center of things, like me? Okay, I'm gonna say I'm in the
Mhm.
center of things. How am I supposed to know what information is valid, what information is not valid, based on everybody running around, pointing fingers and hollering, "Oh, you're hoaxing. You're hoaxing. You're hoaxing. You're hoaxing. You're hoaxing." We don't get anywhere with that.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, you don't get anywhere with that, just the same as you don't get anywhere with all these different sides fighting back and forth with each other. It doesn't
yeah,
help the subject matter at all.
I would like to see Bigfoot proven in my lifetime, but I don't think it's possible now. I'm in my 50s, and I don't think
Mhm.
it's possible now. But at least, maybe 20 years from now, somebody might say, oh, that Kendrick boy that did that podcast 20, 30 years ago, hey, he was onto some stuff.
Mhm.
So that's what I strive for, is to give the people out there good information, relevant information, and opinions from every angle. Because
Agreed.
until we can find the correct angle, we don't know.
Mhm. And that's where I come at from what I'm starting to do and get into, as the yeah, I just turned 40, but so I'm not as young as some of the younger stuff people that are coming into this, but I'm also still young coming into this. I'm a female, I'm a woman, coming into this, and let's be real, the Sasquatch field is very, very male dominated. So I want to show other people and other little girls who are like me, who are into monsters and crazy things that, that it's okay, that to share your opinions and to be into those kinds of things, and to that there are other women out here who have had experiences with these, and it's okay to share it in this
Mhm,
in this. And even though I may not go out into the field, just because I've always been one too scared to, because they stuff has already always found me. Why would I want to go out and find stuff on purpose?
mhm,
That everybody who does something in this community, in this wheelhouse, in this Sasquatch subject matter, everybody is important in what they have to bring to the table. Just because, you're the person who's digging through books and digging through reports and digging through data is just as important as the person who's going out there and finding these data points, who's going out
mhm,
there and finding samples and going out there and finding the hair and the footprints and the environmental data and DNA and all this stuff. So, that's where that's where I sit on all of this. So like I said, hopefully that I can make a small dent in all of this in some way, and if
mhm.
not, I still had fun along the way.
And I'll say this, Amanda, you should probably get a little time in the field.
I
And the
want
reason I
to,
say
and I've
that is the experience that you can gain from spending some time with people and see, that's, you kind of have to make your own decisions on that. What I would consider good researchers. You know what I'm saying?
correct,
I was
correct.
fortunate when I got into it. I got with a really good group. I got really good information and things like that. Uh, but if you get in with some good researchers that are about doing the research, not
Mhm.
just about goofing and all this other stuff, trying to hoax and all that other stuff. But if you get in with good researchers, it's well worth, it's an education that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah,
And
I
I'll
don't
say this
disagree with you
too,
there. I really want to. Just
as far as being what you call a couch researcher, like you said, gathering the data points and everything like that. Okay, we're gonna go back to my old Marine Corps training. Okay.
mhm,
If you're on the ground and you're fighting, you need the three B's: beans, bullets, and band-aids.
mhm,
Okay. You can't fight a war without beans, bullets, and band-aids. Okay, couch researchers that are going through these data points and studying things and doing this and doing that are the ones that's providing the beans, the bullets, and the band-aids. And the people on the
mhm.
ground are actually there. So that's just as important part of it as somebody out there, gathering poop samples. Well, this is Bigfoot
Right?
poop. So, you
Just
know,
looking at it as a comparison, you have the field researchers versus the couch researchers, in the same way that you have the flesh and blood camp against the woo camp. We've
yeah.
all got to come together,
Oh, and I'm
and
gonna be
it's
honest with you. I'm listen, I can be dirty for real. When it comes like me talking to you, if you got a good point, I may steal that point. and sit down and write it down and study on it, research on it, read stuff and look through stuff and see if it meets that scientific method.
Mhm.
I try to pick up on the best habits of everybody that researches. One of the big things that I picked up on, and I never did it before, and I started doing it now, is carrying a notebook. Keep accurate notes. Weather, temperature, where you're at, what kind of terrain it is, all that.
Yeah, those are
And
those environmental DNA points that is so important in gathering this kind of research and data. So yes,
yeah,
please,
and
anybody
without
listening,
that stuff,
remember that.
write it down. It's important stuff. Well, listen, we've been at this for over 2 hours. I'm gonna go ahead and end the show. Do you care to hang on just for a minute after I end?
No, not at all. I will be glad to glad to hang around. Yeah, this has been a
All right.
very very good, very fun conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Before before I end the show, I want to give you
Mhm.
the opportunity to go ahead and plug the museum, plug your TikTok,
Mhm.
plug your YouTube, whatever you've got. Lay it out there. Where can we get a hold of Amanda the Bigfoot Lady?
So you can find me as Amanda the Bigfoot Lady on all social media platforms, mainly TikTok and YouTube at the moment. I do post on Facebook and Instagram as well. If anybody wants to reach out to me to ask me any questions, you can just email me directly at amandathebigfootlady@gmail.com, or just send me a private message on any of those social media platforms. And I've, of course, got to plug the podcast that I'm a part of is around me here. Roger Williams is the main host, and he's invited me to co-host. And Squatchin Holler, I love it because it's got a very southern flair to things out there. And we are part of Doug Hicheck's Untold Radio Network. So it's been a very fun ride to be a part of that experience. So you can find us on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We do live shows when as much as we can. We had to do a pre-recorded one show, but yeah, come and check us out. We would love to have you in the chat group and pick your brains and pick our guest brains as we're talking to them. And then lastly, I can't help but gotta plug the museum in there. It's obviously not my museum. I just work there. I'm an employee. All credit goes to David and Melinda Becerra. It's Expedition Bigfoot, the Sasquatch Museum in Blue Ridge, Georgia, technically Cherry Log, Georgia, but yes, here in Blue Ridge, Georgia. And you can find them also on all social media platforms, and just looking them up as the Sasquatch Museum. It's usually the first thing that pulls up on Google. And remember, it's Expedition Bigfoot, the Sasquatch Museum, not the TV show. It's the original Expedition Bigfoot.
Make sure and look for the museum logo.
Correct. Yes.
I just want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I mean, it was a great guest. We've had a really good talk, a lot of good information out there. The chat was electric. I couldn't keep up. I tried.
Yeah, I had
say
to just
hi to
completely
everybody.
block it out because I was like, okay, I need to focus on just talking with you because usually it's my job to help keep up with the chat, so I had to not look at it.
Yeah. I appreciate all you guys coming on tonight and listening. If you like the subject, if you like what I'm doing, give us a like, subscribe. Tune in every Monday night, 9 o'clock Eastern. We're going to talk about relevant issues. We're going to talk about important information. We're going to talk about everything but politics and religion. I appreciate each and every one of you all for coming on tonight. We had 7 likes and some love going on there. I appreciate each and every one of them. You guys don't have any clue how much it means to me. I can figure out what I'm doing right here. But like I said, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you all. You all have a good night and enjoy the rest of your week. Good night, everybody. Oh, Lord.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Sasquatch. Watch Radio. We are incredibly grateful for our community. Because of you, we've surpassed 6,700 subscribers and continue to grow every day. Our mission here at Stowers is simple: to provide a platform for honest, down-to-earth discussions about Bigfoot, free from drama and ridicule. If you've enjoyed the show, please help us spread the word. If you're interested in being a guest, you can reach us via our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, or by emailing us at sasquatchwatchradio@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to access our full archive dating back to 2008 and to stay updated on all upcoming episodes. If you've had a sighting or an encounter you'd like to report, let us know. We have a network of researchers across the United States ready to assist. You can now find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. Please leave us a comment and let us know what topics you'd like to hear next. We'll see you next Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Until then, keep on squatching.